Hi, everybody.
Hello there.
Jerry.
And Linda.
We're the Villages Newcomers, and we've got a terrific show for you today. You know, we talk about the Villages and the people that live here, and there are so many great people. We never really know what they did in a prior life.
Right.
Well, we've come upon one of my boyhood heroes, lives right here in the Villages, and he's been gracious enough to invite us into his home, and we're going to talk to him here today. His name is Sam McDowell, and Sam played baseball for the Cleveland Indians, for the San Francisco Giants, for the New York Yankees, and for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he was not only a player, he was one of the very best of his day. And we're here in his home today. I want to thank you, Sam, so much for having us.
You're welcome.
And Sam, like I said, wasn't just a pitcher, he was a star. He's a 6-time All-Star, and he led the league 5 times in strikeouts. He doesn't really like to talk about his accomplishments, but I want to lay it out there for you because, like I said, you never know really who you're living next to. We've met astronauts, we've met doctors, lawyers, so many great people here. And, you know, the man next door, there's no telling what he did until you get to know him. But a very accomplished baseball career. During the peak of his career, he was the best in baseball. His career was cut short a little bit. I think, what did you play, Sam, till you were 34?
Yeah.
34 years old, retired, much like Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax retired at age 30. But, and I'll bet you know this, Sam, you have more strikeouts than Sandy Koufax.
I know.
That is amazing. And 2,453 strikeouts in a short career. I'm not going to read all of your accolades. I've got 4 pages of them here. Linda wants to ask you about the Villages.
When did you come to the Villages?
7 years ago. Well, that's actually when I moved here. I had come to the Villages for different visits and different events. I had speaking engagements up here for everything from the health issues that were going on at the time to speaking about baseball and so on years before that, which intrigued me when I did come up here. And so one day I took my wife and we decided to take a drive up here and just look around. And we both enjoyed it, and ultimately we purchased the home here, and we've been living here for the past 7 years.
Yes, we like it too.
And so what, if you had to tell people that are watching about the Villages, what sticks out in your mind about living here?
Well, to me, I would say, obviously, you can look on the internet and see all the activities that are available. You can't dream of doing something that they don't already have here for you. But for me, the most important thing is the beauty. The landscaping is impeccable. The cleanliness and the lack of crime, which you read about in every other city in the United States, is not here. And as you know, most people keep their doors open, unlocked. No big deal. There's no crime here. And I love that. And I also love the idea here that you kind of can do whatever you want to do. You're not handicapped and pinned down to any one thing. I mean, you got tennis, you got bocce, you got golf, swimming, you name it, it's here. And with 150 organizations, formal organizations, for anything, as I said, that you can dream of, I like model trains. They have a model train organization here. I happen to like playing poker. They get poker groups here. I like building model ships, and they get groups here for that. They get card groups. They get, you name it, they're here.
Well, you sound like us. People accuse us of being spokespeople for the Villages, but it's just that nice, and it's kind of got the Disney World feel for adults when you're here. You know, you like you said, do what you want when you want, and there's something for you. If you can think of it, you can do it.
Right.
One thing I wanted to bring up, I was tooling around through the internet, and by the way, I'm going to put a link to this on this video. You were on To Tell the Truth.
Yes,
Do you remember that vividly?
I most certainly do.
I watched that a couple of times. It was a great, great performance. You were so young. You were 18,
17.
17, 2
Oh,
weeks out of high school. And you had already been 17 years old, and 14 of the 16 major league teams had already been in negotiation with you or offered you.
16 of the 16.
Oh, all 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
you better get
Wow.
that right.
Well, that's,
Everybody-
I was going by what they said on To Tell the Truth. He said 14 out of 16. But, I mean, who wouldn't want you? How fast did you throw the ball?
103.
103 miles an hour.
Get out of the way.
I mean, that's what was the Chapman of the Yankees. You know, he was in a similar range. But I don't know if he got to 103.
Well, I don't know if they had any way of telling back then. I know that when Bob Feller was pitching, being with Cleveland for 12 years out of my career, I had heard nothing but story after story after story where they tried to figure out how fast he threw and also how a curveball breaks, but never were able to do it. Fortunately, later on in life, when they came around with radar guns, with lasers, and so on, I was fortunate enough before my career ended that they did have them for me.
The strikeouts are amazing. 5-time league leader, very close some other times. One statistic came out to me, and you can correct me because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be wrong on this, but you pitched a game where you had 17 strikeouts or so and left the game early.
Yeah. Yep, that was in Detroit.
And you stayed in that game, you would have probably had the record, the all-time record for strikeouts in a 9-inning game.
Could have been. It was a very, very weird situation. It was Denny McLean was on his quest to win 30 games that year, and he made a mistake, even though Cleveland was always in last place during that era. Denny made the mistake of verbally stating that he couldn't wait to come to pitch in Cleveland because he could relax. And I asked Alvin Dark, the manager, if he could please switch me and let me pitch against Denny. And maybe I would stop talk like that. And so he did, and I had 17 strikeouts in 7 innings, I believe it was, six and a half innings. Anyhow, I came in and I talked on the bench. I mentioned that I felt a little soreness in my shoulder, and I told him I could finish the game, but they'd just have somebody prepared because at the moment we were winning the game. I think it was 3-1, and I didn't want to lose the game for the team. And so instead of taking a chance, he took me out right there, even though I told him I could probably finish the game. He just didn't want to take a chance. And so he took me out of the game right there and brought in a reliever. We won the game. But it was interesting that day.
I think you are maybe second all-time in the ratio of strikeouts per 9 innings pitched. So almost 1-to-1.
Well, there's only 4 pitchers in the history of baseball to ever average 9 strikeouts per game, per 9-inning game. And they are Nolan Ryan, Sandy Koufax, Johnson, and myself.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. Here's another thing, and forgive me, I'm apologizing to Sam because I'm bringing all this stuff up that he's moved on and he has an incredible career now with what he does, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You were the model for Sam Malone in the television show Cheers.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, the 2 ladies that were the original writers for the Cheers comedy lived in Cleveland. And as I understand it, they were fans of Sam McDowell. And they eventually had moved on and wrote their piece, changing the city and a few things, dealing with a relief pitcher instead of a starter, a former alcoholic, which I was, and Sam Malone was. I had owned a business in Pittsburgh similar to what Malone had, and that's how it all came about. But they changed just enough, so actually they didn't have to pay me royalties.
Oh, man. That's a bummer.
You just mentioned about pitching. Today's pitchers very, very seldom pitch a complete game. They have specialists that come in the 7th inning or in the 8th inning or finish up the game, the closers. You pitched a lot of complete games. I looked it up. You had over 100 complete games.
Well, that's basically how we got paid back in the day. But it's not because some pitchers couldn't do it today. In defense of them, near the middle of my career, they started grooming specialists to pitch at different points in a game. You had your follow-up men, you had your long men, you had your closers, right-handed, left-handed closers. And they had found out that by grooming certain pitchers in the minor leagues, that at the time they knew they couldn't be starters because they didn't have enough equipment for the endurance, meaning types of pitches and what have you. And they decided to maybe try to train them just for specialty areas like the last 2 or 3 outs of a game or the middle reliever and so on. And it worked out. And they came up with some fantastic closers, as history shows.
Yeah, that's something else. And you have played with absolutely, of course, it's coming from my time period, man. I had all the baseball cards. What did my mom do with them? I don't know what happened to them. But I remember your scowling face on all those cards because you were the intimidator.
He was tough.
You were the man back then. But you played with Willie Mays. You played with Mickey Mantle, with Roger Maris, with Harmon Killebrew, with Carl Yastrzemski, with Brooks and Frank Robinson. You were with all these guys. Hank Aaron. Do you have any memories of those guys or any stories about any one of those players?
Actually, I have stories about all of them, but I don't think we have enough time for all of them. But one of the most interesting ones was I was pitching a game on a Saturday afternoon against Yankees, and the Cleveland Indians were Yankee killers. They hated to play the Indians, even though we were proverbial last place teams every year. But somehow we were their nemesis. And I was particularly Mickey Mantle's nemesis in that he had a very difficult time against me. And I used to strike him out a lot, more so than most of your great hitters, even though he probably was, to me, he was the greatest hitter I ever faced or baseball player. Even though I played with Willie Mays, I would put them both on an even par. But I was pitching this game and I struck Mickey 4 out of 4 times in a game and went ahead and beat the Yankees. And the next day we had a doubleheader. And in between games, I started to save memorabilia. And so I sent over word to the visiting clubhouse guy to ask Mickey if he would sign a picture for me. And so in between the game, that's what he did. He went over and asked Mickey. And Mickey signed the picture for me, but I can't show it to anybody with what he said on the autograph and then autographed it.
Wow. That's and we're sitting in your living room here, and I'm looking around, and first of all, you got a lot of great stuff, but I came right in and saw the picture of you shaking hands with Richard Nixon. Pretty cool. The classic left-handed fireballer portrait above your head there. I'll bet you've got some great mementos.
I used to have a lot of mementos, but quite frankly, when we moved up here, I kind of didn't want to clutter my whole house with them. So I basically got rid of almost all my mementos.
That's what we encourage people. When you move to the Villages, you're not going to have a basement. You're not going to have a storage shed in the backyard. We downsized big time. It hurt, but now you got over it. You found out they're just things. You move on.
You've got the memories.
Now, when you were a kid, you're not that much older than us. You're only 13 years older, I think.
So you're only 40?
And that's right, we are.
Did you have an idol growing up in baseball?
No, I didn't. In fact, I didn't know very much about baseball, football, and basketball. Although I played every sport, I didn't really get a chance to loaf on the corners with the guys that were always getting in trouble because I was playing football, basketball, baseball, tennis, and cross country in high school, and I lettered in all of them. And so I really didn't have any time, and my family didn't have any money. So I never had a chance to go to any games, and I didn't listen to any games on the radio. We didn't have time for that at home. So I never knew anything about the sports until the Pittsburgh Pirates started trying to, how do we say, sell me on the idea that eventually I might sign with the Pirates. So during my junior year and senior year in high school, they asked me to come and pitch batting practice against the Pirates at the time, which I did, but I didn't even have time to stick around and watch the game because I was still in school. I had homework to do. I had to be home at certain times and in bed. I had very strict parents. And so I went home immediately after taking a shower and batting practice was over. I left and I went home. So I never got to see an actual baseball game professionally until I played it.
Wow.
And that says a lot about your parents being strict and keeping you busy and putting you in all these sports and keeping you involved. I think that's great for any child. It's great.
Do you keep in touch with any of your old teammates?
Well, because of the jobs that I had after baseball as a counselor, I kept in touch with hundreds upon hundreds of different players, and especially my old teammates and so on, which was my job, because my job was to try and solve any problem that a former player might run into or have. And I did that for 40 years. Now I'm involved with stem cell therapy, the new miracle in medicine. And I'm also on the board of directors with Major League Baseball and with BAT, the special program of the commissioner of baseball. In fact, the second we leave here, I'll be on a conference call with the commissioner's office. So I'm still quite busy, quite involved with baseball. And to answer your question, yes. I probably, within the last month alone, talked with maybe 30 of my former teammates on one team or another.
How nice. So you take in a game every now and then these days?
I do, I would say, semi-reluctantly, and yet at the same time enjoy it when I'm actually there. But I've got so much to do. But I do go to Cleveland about 3 times a year, and I go to Pittsburgh 2 or 3 times a year because my family still lives there. And so I'm able to see some games then. But to sitting and watching it on TV, I don't get much of a chance.
I just want to tell the folks that are watching that Sam is in the Cleveland Indians Hall of Fame. And I would say that they probably, when you make your visits to Cleveland, welcome you with open arms up there.
Yes, I'm very fortunate. I have some great fans there, great people, and I'm remembered there quite well, which I'm very gratified for.
Some people say you're right at that list of some of the best players that did not get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And surely if you had played a few more years, your numbers would have put you there.
Well, thank you, and I do appreciate that there's a group of people now that are trying to push for that because they have compared my accomplishments in baseball to a lot of the people that are actually in the Hall of Fame, in which my statistics are a lot better than the ones that are in the Hall of Fame. But I really don't care either way for that, and I don't mean to demean it in any way. It's just that my life has gone on, and
you're where you're supposed to be.
I'm where I'm supposed to be.
With the thing about the records, I love to look at, and just exactly what you said, compare your numbers to other players' numbers that are in the Hall of Fame. And there are so many. But as I mentioned earlier, he has more strikeouts than Sandy Koufax. And of course, Sandy Koufax has a list of accomplishments that would, choke a horse. But you have more than Juan Marichal and so many other great pitchers.
Well, also I had the lowest earned run average than 43 previous pitchers in the Hall of Fame. There's only, I believe, 4 individuals that averaged as low a earned run average in baseball that I did. And to me, that's extremely important because that deals with actually you against the opposition rather than because you didn't have a good team behind you, you didn't have good hitters or fielders or what have you. Because we were always in last place. As you know, from the time I signed my contract with Cleveland for 12 years, we were always in last place. And it was expected to be in last place because our general manager wasn't going to spend any money. But in my particular case, because of personal pride and all the players on the team, I wouldn't have changed a lot of those players for anybody because they did give their heart and soul to the game and for the Cleveland Indians. But at the same time, we did things that no other people did. And we obviously, because we didn't win a World Series, you're not going to get recognition for it.
I noticed that as well. You won 141, lost 134. You didn't get a lot of support in those 134 games, and it was noticeable.
Let's put it this way. I had a 181 earned run average, 325 strikeouts in 270 innings, and I couldn't win 20 games with it.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Nobody else in baseball ever did that.
Well, listen, I know we've taken a lot of your time, and you have a conference call coming up, but Linda and I want to thank you so much for letting us come in your home, and your lovely wife, Eva. We just appreciate this more than we can tell you.
Well, I appreciate having you. Thank you.
Sam is a personable guy. At his top of his game, he was one of the greatest of all time in baseball and lives right here among us.
And what a blessed life. And now he's doing so much for the community and doing things with stem cell research. What a blessed life.
Yeah, we've had a good time here today. We'd like to thank you all for watching. And by the way, I told you that he was on To Tell the Truth. I'm going to put a link to that in the description of the video. He also has a really cute Who's on First routine with Ken Harrelson, and I'm going to put a link to that one also in the description.
And that's still being played throughout the United States.
It's very good. So thanks everybody for watching.
Please press that like and subscribe. Until next time.
See you when you get here.